Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, and we've got ourselves some somber Xbox news to dive into in today's video. A very big exclusive that really defined the early parts of 2022 for Xbox has been delayed significantly, thus altering the entire landscape for the start of 2022, and I think Xbox may have to make some changes here to respond to this. We'll talk about all of that in just a moment. Also, on the good side of things, Xbox is growing globally, but there's something I noticed in the sales charts for the UK that points to something pretty interesting that we'll highlight in this video. Last but not least, a notable first-party exclusive that was available only on PC seems to be making its move to consoles. So we're going to get into all of that in today's video. If you're new here, do consider subscribing. We talk a lot about Xbox news, and with that, here we go. So, Stalker 2. The most noteworthy Xbox exclusive, albeit a timed one, which was then leaked during the Epic versus Apple court case to be only about a 3-month exclusive, but an exclusive nonetheless, has now been moved all the way back to December. If you don't remember, the last time we talked about Stalker 2, it was with NFTs and this stupid-ass metaverse that so many companies keep trying to get a quick buck off of, right? We continue to see it pushed. Stalker 2 was saying, you could be the NPCs for this game. It's not going to invade anything. They were fine doing that, but then suddenly when there was a lot of pushback, they canceled that, and now there's a big delay. So let's read the note from the developers, and we'll discuss not only the game, but the 2022 landscape for Xbox moving forward. Stalkers, we have made, I just realized now, like starting off to read this letter, Stalkers. Okay, I get it's a part of the game, but anyway, let's keep reading. We have made a decision to postpone the release of Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl to December 8th, 2022. Those additional 7 months of development are needed to fulfill our vision and achieve the desired state of the game. Stalker 2 is the biggest project in the history of GSC, and it requires thorough testing and polishing. We are convinced that development should take as long as necessary, especially in the case of such a project. This decision is not an easy one, but we are going to do the best to deliver you a game that can live up to the expectations. With more information, updates, and showcases coming, we have an exciting and important year ahead. Thank you for your patience and understanding. With love, GSC Game World team. Okay, first of all, let's just note that they said showcases. So, as expected, Xbox will likely be doing a lot of showcases this year, especially in a year where we're going to finally start to lay our eyes on a lot of the things coming up for Xbox, right? I'm talking about stuff like Fable. I'm talking about stuff like whatever Compulsion Games is working on, etc., etc. But let's talk about Stalker 2. So, this was a really good looking game. The NFT thing really started to jeopardize it, but fortunately they pulled out of that, so the hype had resumed once more. I gotta say, with all the gameplay we saw for this one, this delay caught me off guard, and I know 2022 will have a number of delays. We'll talk about some of those in just a moment, but this one seemed like it was ready to rock eventually, and especially with how much they had shown us, it seemed like we were getting closer to that. So this one did catch me off guard, and even if it was delayed, 7 months was not what I was anticipating, but it does kind of make sense when you look at the scope and scale of the game compared to the other Stalker games, that this one looks gigantic and truly AAA. So it's a shame. What happens though is this really shifts the early parts of 2022, where we know Horizon's coming out, PlayStation's going to be going hard this year. Be ready for that. I'm really excited to see what PlayStation does this year. But Xbox has all their answers at the end of the year now, right? Redfall, Starfield, and now Stalker 2. So the early part of the year is completely vacant for them. Fortunately, though, Xbox has a tool that they can use, as I said in one of our last Xbox news videos, to respond in a knee-jerk fashion to this stuff and to supply their audience with things that are necessary. And my eyes are locked on one game here that Xbox needs to pony up for a day one Game Pass drop, if the other company is willing to do so. I'm talking about Dying Light 2. This is a 4-player co-op game, which really fits the mold of what Game Pass has been all about with these day one drops. But also, this is a game that I keep seeing Xbox in the feed of Techland for constantly. Constant interaction, right? And I always see that leading up to any big announcements. And I feel like this is the time to pull the trigger. Because while Xbox has gotten, I think, big day one games you start to see the half measures here, like a Rainbow Six Extraction. It's a $40 game. You see something like Dark Alliance, a buggy $40 game. You see something like Outriders, which was legitimately fun, but no one was really buying into. Dying Light 2 has legitimate hype behind it, although some people are also worried about the development process, which understandably so. But I think if you're going to pony up, now's the time, because you have no answers until when? There are certainly going to be indies and things to be highlighted. 2022 will still be a great year for Xbox, but again, we're looking at a pretty tilted scale here. That's just my thoughts on the response to this delay. I think it's good to give GSC the time they need to make a great game. Even if it's going to be a timed exclusive, I still think this is something that's super important. With that in mind, though, I mentioned how other games are probably going to be delayed. I'm going to put Redfall on that list. I had heard as much recently, although it was not from a usual source, so do not run away with this one. But I still think information is power, and if even a couple thousand of you hear this and go like, okay, expectations in place here, this one would just make sense to me, given that we have only seen a cinematic trailer for it. And if this is supposed to be a summer 2022 game, like it's been marketed as, then are we waiting till E3 to then show this game off with gameplay for the first time? And then it comes out in like the end of August, the beginning of September, maybe. Arcane games already struggle enough to market themselves, let alone giving them like 3 months to do so. This is why I also anticipate a showcase before E3, sometime in the spring. That said, I do feel like this is one that can slip into the holidays, and I wouldn't be too surprised if that occurs. As for Starfield, I don't know, man. They locked that one in pretty far ahead of time. Todd said in an interview with IGN, we did it in ink. So I think that one's not moving. I am still of the mindset that the reports that came out in counter to mine and many others, which was that Starfield was largely done and in a serious polishing phase, I think as time goes on, seemingly becomes more and more true, with certain little tidbits that Todd Howard has said about the development process of that game. So I feel like that one isn't moving. I'd be very surprised if Starfield moved at all. To me, that seems like a guarantee. But we'll see, of course. It's 2022. Anything can happen, right? With that, ladies and gentlemen, let's move to our next bit of news. This has to deal with Age of Empires 4. This is an RTS that came out just in October from an Xbox first-party studio known as World's Edge. And they do pretty good work. I liked Age of Empires 4. I was significantly hooked to it while I was playing it for my review process. And a lot of people were wondering, is this game going to come to Xbox? Because it was only on PC. And I felt like it was a safe assumption. Yes, you look at something like Microsoft Flight Simulator, which went from PC to Xbox and it grew a ton and people were really happy with it. I think you're going to see the same thing here with Age of Empires 4. So let's read a couple of tweets. This comes from Agior Namenti Lumia, who you may remember this Twitter account from such events like Halo Infinite's multiplayer leaking. This account pretty much tracks the database for Microsoft and all movements within them with the code names. So it makes it where fans can know ahead of time what exactly Xbox is planning. And in this case here, you'll see that it says XIP CAR January 2022, aka Cardinal January 2022, now available for internal testing in the Xbox Insider Hub. CAR equals Cardinal equals Age of Empires 4, XIP equals Xbox Insider Preview. This is the first Microsoft mention of XIP. Last internal tests were called Cardinal Insider, closed beta for May 21, June 21, closed beta 2 for June 21, August 21, September 21, October 21. So it looks like now Age of Empires 4 is making its move to consoles. This is, again, not too much of a surprise here, and I think it's a very smart move because out of everything that came out in the fall for Xbox, Age of Empires 4 set its own personal records, but it was, I'd say, the smallest out of everything else that came out in the first-party family. So I think a move to consoles will help this one out a lot because that was one of the write-ins we got a lot on Defining Duke was, hey, what's going to happen with this game? Is it going to come to consoles? I want to play it, but I don't want to play it on PC. And I hear that a million times over. I work at my PC many hours a day, so I do not want to constantly be there gaming too. So I feel you all. And yeah, it looks like that's what's going to occur here. They're going to move it to consoles. With that, let's move into our last bit of news, which may not seem noteworthy, but hear me out once we get to the end of this story. So Xbox Series S and X hits 1 million UK sales in strong December. This is the UK monthly sales chart by gamesindustry.biz. According to GfK's panel data, it was another massive month for Switch, which saw a 6% increase in console sales over November. November had already been a big month for Nintendo's machine due to significant Black Friday activity around a new Mario Kart 8 Deluxe bundle. As a result, Switch was the #1 console of December. Just behind Nintendo was Xbox Series S and X consoles, which enjoyed a bumper 108% increase in sales month on month. In fact, it is the biggest month yet for Xbox Series X and S, even beating its launch month in November 2020, which would make a lot of sense with what came out. The increase was driven by significant increase in stock of the X version of the console. There have now been over 1 million Xbox Series consoles sold in the UK since its launch in November 2020, GfK says. It means that PS5 slips into third place this month, which is still a successful sales period for Sony's platform, which enjoyed a 28% increase in sales compared with November. It was the second biggest month for PS5 and the biggest outside of its launch month. So Xbox is going to see more noteworthy growth here. The reason for that is because PlayStation has typically dominated the UK. So Xbox getting in there with a lot of big games and Game Pass, it does not surprise me that they were one of the top holiday consoles this year around. And I do have to bring up another write-in from Defining Duke, which is we were often asked, hey, what happened with the UK sales for Xbox? Are they growing globally? How can they grow globally in general? Because they're a very successful US console, but in Japan and the UK, how successful are they? Now we know 1 million console sales have occurred there, which is solid. Those numbers will typically be higher than PlayStation since there's already a higher retention rate for PlayStation in that region. That said, what I wanted to point out here beyond the success of Xbox in the UK was this software sales chart, which the UK is one you should always pay attention to. The reason for that is because they combine physical and digital. And so let's see right here, and you might notice in this sales chart here, FIFA, Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto 5, F1 2021, no Forza Horizon 5, no Halo Infinite in the top 20 sales for December 2021. Now, November, different story, but Halo Infinite not there. What this tells me is a lot of people in the UK like Game Pass. And that would, to me, suggest that, of course, there are going to be people who go out and buy Halo Infinite, but you look at the situation with Halo Infinite's physical copy, where it was worthless. Like, there's no point in buying the disc because you're literally going to download the game online anyway. People are just going through Game Pass here. Not only that, but people might be buying an Xbox just to play the multiplayer. I just think that this is very telling. Very, very telling out of 1 million Xboxes that we haven't really seen anything from Xbox's biggest games hit the sales charts in their biggest months, even in the top 20, right? I mean, this is a large range of games, and I think there's obvious reason for why it's not there, but a lot of people have wondered, like, what are the sales looking like for Halo Infinite? It's really interesting, right? Because this is a game that is on Game Pass, the multiplayer is free. Well, I imagine we're starting to get our answer here that, at least in the UK, not too crazy, but we're talking about in the scheme of things, not the largest amount of consoles. Because when you look at what Phil Spencer just said in our last Xbox news update about how it's the largest start to a generation for an Xbox console, and comparatively speaking, the highest number we had was 12 million. It seems like they surpassed that, so this might be the smallest pool for Xbox, and most of those consoles in the US will be more telling on a sales front. So that's the differentiation there, but still, thought it was really interesting to see that it didn't even make the top 20. With that, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the news I got for you on the Xbox front. A really exciting day of it, really. I mean, exciting might not be the best way to put it, but a lot of interesting stuff to discuss because I think it does shift the landscape for Xbox in a number of ways. So I'm looking forward to seeing your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you feel about the recent delay for an Xbox exclusive, of course, the release potentially of Age of Empires 4 on console, and the sales we're seeing here in the UK? Fire away. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.